Hello friends, let's get ready to do a cozy gaming book review. My cozy drink of choice today is a double shot of espresso with a splash of oat milk, which I'm very well about to finish. We're going to be playing A Little to the Left, and we will be reviewing The Things We Cannot Say. This review does have spoilers, so you have been warned, but if you're looking for a little bit of dialogue about the book, then let's talk about it and let's go. The Things We Cannot Say is a relatively new book. It was published back in 2019, and overall it received pretty positive reviews. I think I fall somewhere in the middle. I'm not a huge fan of changing narrator point of views. That's kind of on me for not reading up about the book before I started it. The Things We Cannot Say is a World War II historical novel. It takes place shifting between the point of view of Alina, the Polish grandmother who escaped Nazi occupation, and Alice, her granddaughter who lives in Florida. The story starts with Alice, which shows the struggles of caring for her son, Eddie, who is on the autism spectrum. Eddie's nonverbal, so he has to communicate using an AAC, or Augmentative and Alternative Communication Device. Because of the care that Eddie requires, Alice decides to be a stay-at-home mom, but Wade really does not help around with Eddie at all, and really doesn't acknowledge him in general. He does, however, spend plenty of time hanging out with their gifted daughter, Callie, which only adds to Alice's resentment. We are introduced to the second narrator, Babsha, or Alina, who has just had a stroke in the hospital. Alina is Alice's grandmother. Alina figures out how to use Eddie's AAC and tells her granddaughter that she wants to fire Tomas. Both Alina and her mother, Julita, are confused by this statement. Eventually, Alina communicates that she wants Alice to go to Poland and visit Trzebina, her hometown. Alice, on the other hand, struggles to fulfill her grandmother's request. She can't possibly imagine leaving Eddie under Wade's care. Well, one massive marital fight later, Alice buys a ticket impulsively and decides she's off to Poland. Shifting over to Alina's story, we do a flashback to when she was a young woman about to marry her fiancé, Tomas. Tomas leaves to Warsaw to become a doctor. Meanwhile, she stays at the farm with her family, including her twin brothers. While Tomas is away, the Nazis arrive in Trzebina. Not long after, they call a town meeting where they murder the mayor and Alexei, Tomas's father. Alina's family is given a strict quota to give their produce to the Nazi army. Meanwhile, her two brothers are sent away to a camp. Eventually, Tomas sneaks back to Trzebina to find Alina. He hides in the nearby woods, and Alina sneaks food over to him. Alina's parents discover that Tomas is back and decide to hide him in their cellar. Just like Alina's twin brothers, her parents are taken away as well. Tomas is convinced that they have to escape Poland, but first they spend some time together in the cellar. This allows them to unofficially get married and consummate their love. Shifting back to Alice, she is now in Poland with a tour guide. She has a very emotional moment seeing Alina's childhood home and how run down it looks. Unfortunately, the home doesn't really answer why Babsha said to fire Tomas, and so they head over to Tomas's father's clinic. By pure coincidence, she meets her cousin for the very first time. She is Tomas's sister's daughter. When they meet, the cousin tells Alice that Tomas is dead, and so they can't possibly be related. Alice is even more confused now because her grandfather died just a couple months ago. Shifting back to Alina, we learn that Tomas stays back in Poland, fearing that the Nazis would come after his sister Emilia. Instead, he sends a Jewish surgeon named Saul who helped him back in Warsaw. Of course, Alina hates this, but she is convinced that Tomas will find a way to get back to them. Saul and Alina do make it into a Soviet refugee camp using Tomas's papers and changing her name to Hannah. While they were waiting for Tomas, Alina finds out that she's pregnant. Saul decides to marry her so that her reputation won't be tarnished in the refugee camp. Ultimately, they make it to England, where they are offered to be taken to America. Flashing back forward, Alice was eventually able to connect her great-aunt Emilia to her grandmother, Alina. The two women cried together as they reconnected over FaceTime. They were able to communicate in Polish to each other, and the tour guide was able to let Alice know that Babsha wanted to be brought back to Poland to be laid to rest with Tomas. The story ends with Alice and her whole family visiting Poland. Overall, you can tell that the author really thought about the title, The Things We Cannot Say. Throughout the generations, these families were struggling to have these difficult unspoken conversations. Tomas didn't know how to tell Alina that he would be sacrificing his life to ensure she could make it out of Poland. Alina and Saul both agreed to live new lives as Hannah and Tomas. They kept waiting for that perfect moment to tell Julita that Saul wasn't her real father, but that moment just never came. Alice and Wade did not know how to talk about Eddie's autism or Wade's apprehension to being around Eddie. Given that these difficult conversations end up happening for the main characters, we are given the impression that the things we feel we cannot say ultimately have to be put out in the open, no matter how hard they are. Like I mentioned at the very beginning, I would have preferred if the narratives did not shift, and this is for a couple of reasons. Alice's story was already fraught all on its own. Rimmer is incredibly dutiful and respectful in creating this family that includes a child on the spectrum. She allows the reader to see how much of an internal struggle it is for Alice as the mother. She cannot allow herself to want her son to be normal, because that would mean rejecting him. At the same time, she feels deeply protective of Eddie, seeing how he is treated by society, her family, and most controversially, her husband. Alice is constantly having these arguments with Wade, and only does the trip allow Wade to see how much Alice goes through as Eddie's caretaker. This could have been a story on its own, but it is sandwiched between Alina's story, which is deeply traumatic and sad. There was a massive mental and emotional shift which I never quite got the hang of. Focusing only on Alina's story, this book demonstrates a deep appreciation for family history and accuracy, and for the terrible events that happened in Poland during World War II. Rimmer later explains that she traveled to Poland in order to prepare for writing the book. If anything, I would have preferred to read this story on its own. I can see, however, why Rimmer went with this choice. It gives a depth to the family tree and what can grow even in the midst of tragedy. Grandmother finishing her legacy, daughter continuing to choose her path, and granddaughter finding hers as well. The book did also feel like it dragged on, as one plot had to play catch up with the other one, especially as each individual timeline was trying to reach the climax and fall to the resolution. I really dislike this. Being that it is a World War II novel, it does have a lot of heavy topics that can be triggering to some readers as well. But all in all, by the time the book ended, I was happy with both points of view. It does have a nice ending that is bittersweet and hopeful as well. So, should you read The Things We Cannot Say? I'd say it's still a really good story, and if you're not put off by shifting narrator point of views, then this might be an okay read. I hope you enjoyed watching A Little to the Left. It is a super cute game, and I really recommend that you check it out. Thanks for watching, lovelies. I will see you on the next round. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Till next time.